In order for you to convert a lead into a deal at a high conversion rate, you cannot just be, this is my offer, let's negotiate why I'm the best, and I'm the best, I'm all cash. That's not how closers close, not the top 1%. If you want to be a great closer, you need to understand that the seller needs to feel heard and understood. They need to trust you, they need to like you, they need to like what you're offering them. But most importantly, you need to be able to drive them into an emotional state so they can make an emotion-based decision.
David, thanks for joining me for our Thought Leader Spotlight series. I'm your host over here, Matt Camp, head of partnerships at DealMachine. And on these, we really like to shine an industry spotlight on experts like yourself, hear your inspiring stories, and see how you see the industry evolving. So today, really excited to welcome on our good friend, David Choi. He's somebody you might know him from social media. He's got phenomenal content on Instagram, YouTube, all over the place. I know you do such an awesome job with just being genuine and giving so much value there. And you're growing really quickly for that reason, man. So you might know him from that. His background too, I know you're a founder of multiple 7+ figure companies, have done over 500 flips, have over $50 million in assets under management. And in general, you're just a great dude. Like, I've known you for years. You come across always trying to really help people and be so genuine in that effort. So, David, thank you so much for spending your time here today with us, man. Excited to have you on.
Yeah, no, thank you, Matt. It's a pleasure to be on your podcast. I've known you for years, and it's about time we did something like this.
Absolutely, man. So, I gave a little bit of background here, but can you tell us more about, like, your real estate investing journey, how you got into this? Our audience would love to hear that.
Yeah, no problem. So I am co-founders and partners with my best friend Eric. We run a small private equity firm based out of New Jersey. We On the acquisition side, we have about $50 million in AUM. That's mostly self-funded, so we don't really syndicate too much on the equity side of the business. Um, that means we don't have a lot of partners, and we also run an acquisition company. So we do wholesale, fix and flip, buy and hold, novations, hotels. Just we just basically know how to, we do a lot of direct to seller marketing, and so we know how to chop up a lead, a prospect, a motivated seller in various different exit strategies, so we can monetize in multiple different ways. And just by virtue of wholesaling a lot, in the beginning stages of our career, we had a lot of investors, and so our investors were always looking for capital, or they were looking for a reliable finance partner. And my business partner Eric, having come from the financing, the lending world, doing bridge loans, DSCR loans, he would broker out the loans for them. And so as we kind of started to grow, that we realized that we could make significantly more being the actual lender. And so we started off putting a little bit of our own retained earnings into actually lending people the money, and then selling the notes off. And now we have a debt fund where we have roughly 25 to $30 million of lending power a month. And so yeah, on the debt side, we have a debt fund where we originate DSCR loans, and then on the equity side, we buy, fix and flip, and hold assets.
I love it, man. And when you guys first got started with this too, can you break down a little bit more around that first deal you did and lessons you learned through that? I know we have a lot of people listening who are trying to get over that hump and are thinking about getting into this and are looking for advice on really getting that first one done.
Yeah, no, it's analysis paralysis is a real thing. It took me 4 years to get my first deal, 4 years. And it was like, let me go work for some people. Let me go to every single networking event. Let me read every book, listen to every Bigger Pockets podcast. And like, I just really put a lot of time and effort in education. And, had I just taken action in the right, in the right ways, instead of just self-educating the whole time, I'm sure I would have gotten a deal within the first year, first few months. And so, yeah, I will give you guys, my first deal was actually door knocking.
Nice.
I was a broke kid. I was 20, 22. I just started working in corporate America. And so I didn't have a lot of gunpowder to play with, nor did I have time. I was working in private equity, so I was working like 80, 90 hours a week traveling the country. And so the very little time I had if I was spending money on direct mail or cold, if I hired a call center or I did texting, if the leads came in, I knew I wasn't going to be able to answer them and have the kind of speed to lead that is going to generate revenue. So I did it the cheapest way possible, get in my car and start door knocking people in foreclosure. And that happened on Saturdays. I would just go door knock I actually had a mentor of mine who that's pretty much all he did was door knocking and made a couple $100,000 a year doing it. So
Wow.
I went with him one time and I was like, oh, I could do this. And so I went on a Saturday, and actually the first time I went door knocking on my own, I had a Corona T-shirt on, some joggers, and just like some kicks, and I got a deal. It was like within like the second hour, and we just hit it off, and that turned into a short sale that I ended up partnering and buying. But yeah, that was the first one. And it took me a long time. I thought it was like really lucky, honestly, but it took me a long time after that to actually build up a system to generate consistent lead flow and deal flow. But that was my first one. It wasn't that profitable. I think I only made like 25 grand. My girl asked me like, what's the first property you buy? Honestly, at this point, I've done so many deals. I don't even remember the first property I bought, but I like on my own. But like yeah, that was the first deal. Um, and second deal was a cold calling. That's memorable one because I made 60 grand on that, and I
Mhm.
really needed the money at the time. I was running out of money while I started my business, so that one I will always remember.
I get that. Yeah, I mean that 20K. That's I know it's a small win in hindsight for where you're at now, but I mean that's a huge win for that first one, man. Like for people to know that's possible, that's awesome. That you're literally, like you said, door knocking in a casual t-shirt and whatnot, and doing deals like that's inspiring. One thing I do want to get to, like you mentioned, taking the right actions and marketing and all of that as well. But one thing you said, kind of in your journey, I've always been curious about too. I know you said you work with Eric, like your best friend there. Tell us more about that. Like, what have you learned through that experience? Do you recommend that? I know we have a lot of people who have, work with friends like that. It's cool. I'm in a DealMachine. Two co-founders, they're two of my best friends. They were in my wedding party. Like, they're guys that I love working with every day, that I grew up with. I've known them since seventh grade, David. So, it's relatable for me, but I want to hear your experience. Like, what do you recommend?
Do I recommend partners?
No,
Look,
specifically best friends, like coming
best
into
friend.
it
So
with.
we weren't best friends to begin with. We were just like
Sure.
we got into business together, and just by virtue of being in business together and
Hmm.
supporting and loving each other, we became. I'm the godfather of his newborn son.
Hmm.
Um, we're here for each other, and when you go to war together and you go through hell and back, you become brothers. But as far as like partnering with best friends, um, my experience was, one of my first partners was my ex-girlfriend. And so I think that like doing business with people that you're too close with it's just like, there's an old saying, don't mix blood in business. I don't recommend it. In fact, I think that partnerships in general are incredibly difficult. You're married. You start a business, you start hiring employees, you're married, and you better be committed to making that marriage work. Otherwise, it's going to be a painful divorce. And I'm not saying that like, me and Eric we're all sunshine and rainbows. I mean, we went through some really, really, really rough patches. Um, many of times, but we had to do a lot of self development. We hired personal coaches, um, worked on traumas in our past, kind of learned to love ourselves so we can love each other more. We went to like couples therapy. I mean, we've done it all to kind of make this work. And that's why I'm really so grateful for the partnership, is because had I not gotten married at the age of 20 23 years old, I would not be the man that I am today. Because if you fight for a marriage and you fight for that partnership to work, you really need to fight to make yourself a better person. So, um, overall, if you're willing to if you're willing to get married and stick it out for the long haul, you better go on a couple of dates first. So it is tough, but it is very rewarding.
That's great advice, man. Yeah, I love to hear your perspective on it. And you're right. Once when you go to war with partners like that, and you guys, you come out of it, if you're sticking around like that and you're committed, you're coming out for, much closer like that. So it's awesome to see. Okay, cool. So you mentioned, if you spent, 4 years trying to figure this out and listening to podcasts, and maybe you're listening to this right now. Love that you're here and you're educating yourself, for the audience here. But what do the right actions look like when you say, hey, if I would just focus on the right actions? Can you break that down on, what that looks like and your playbook for that?
Oh man. So I played it cheap because I was broke. I read the books. I mean, I knew so much about real estate before I got my first deal. I knew about cost segregation, depreciation. I knew about loopholes and tax strategies. I knew how to underwrite commercial multifamily, retail, grocery anchored retail strip centers, self storage, medical office, senior housing. I mean, I knew so much about different types of financing structures, equities, joint ventures, syndications, fund structure. I knew so much. It was like unnecessary amount of knowledge to do exactly what I'm doing right now. And so I kind of like, if I had to condense knowing what I know now, it's really, really simple. If you can get a good deal, Matt, if to everyone listening, this is the rule. If you could get a good deal, the money will come. Okay, if you could get a good deal, the money will come. If you get a grand slam deal, I promise you, hit me up. Hit me up on Instagram. Hit up anyone in your neighborhood. The money will come. I promise you. Right? And so, in order to get a good deal, here's what you need to know. You need to know how to go direct to seller. Okay, you need to be able to generate leads with sellers that are motivated to sell, whether it be because they're back on mortgage payments, tax payments, maybe there's deferred maintenance, big, tall grass, boarded up. Perhaps they just inherited the property. Perhaps they haven't paid their water bills. Just a lot of different deteriorating credit score. Maybe they're downside. You just need to get a motivated seller, someone who's going to sell. And then after you get that, if you're spending money on it, you ought to know how to close that deal, right? And so if you're not naturally born with the gift of gab, that's okay, because the science of sales is readily available for everybody. Charisma is just a couple of things, a couple of characteristics, right? People are born with it, some people aren't. But there's a couple things that charismatic people do. They smile, they shake your hand, they nod their head, they repeat what you say. They kind of just to make sure that the other person feels heard and understood. If you're talking to a woman, you want to keep your hands up, right? Direct body language, shoulder to shoulder. If you're talking to a man, you don't want to size him up, maybe tilt a little bit, right? And nod your head. These are the things, the ahs. Maybe you don't know any jokes. Maybe you're not a funny person, but you might want to take a comedy class or just watch a couple comedians, pick up a couple jokes, right? These are the characteristics of a charismatic person. So if you're not naturally charismatic, you could learn to be charismatic through education, right? And what you need to know about sales is that it's kind of all happens the same. 95% of decisions are emotion-based decisions. And so in order for you to convert a lead into a deal at a high conversion rate, you cannot just be, this is my offer, let's negotiate why I'm the best, and I'm the best, I'm all cash. That's not how closers close, not the top 1%. If you want to be a great closer, you need to understand that the seller needs to feel heard and understood. They need to trust you, they need to like you, they need to like what you're offering them. But most importantly, you need to be able to drive them into an emotional state so they can make an emotion-based decision. Not just staying on the logic side of things, because that's not how people make decisions. You need to understand what problems they're going through, right? This is very classic Jeremy Miner. A lot of different salespeople teach this, but Jeremy Miner is great. What problems they're having right now, the pain that they're going through, help them feel that. Where they want to be, help them feel that emotion. Transition that, or maybe pull it away, make them feel like what it's going to be if they don't make the right decision, how their life's going to look. Move over to the transition, and based on the questions you ask them, present it in a way that's going to solve their unique situation. Maybe they need help relocating. Maybe they just need an as is sale. Maybe they don't want to have a lot of open houses. Maybe the tenants aren't paying rent and they need to be evicted. Maybe they don't want to displace the tenants. You got to ask the right questions in order to solve their exact problems. It's not just about peppering offers at people. That's not how this game of sales works. So the last step of sales is making that commitment very easy to do. That action threshold. When you're on Amazon, click a button, you make a sale, right? You want to make it as simple as that. So the way that you word the process of how this closes needs to be very easy. It's as simple as authorizing this agreement so that way I can introduce you to my transaction coordinator. I'll loop you in with the title company. We'll get that title cleared. We'll schedule closing. That way you can sell your property and move to North Carolina, enjoy the rest of your retirement with your loved ones. Sound fair enough? It's just really just, it's a process. It's a sales process that you need to learn. But great tools like this are available. Jeremy Miner is really good. I'm actually launching an acquisition focused course surrounding this in heavy detail. And so, but I don't want to make this about me. That's pretty much what.
That was great. No, that's huge. I love that little crash course. Do you, I mean, one thing you touched on, I love how you talk about asking great questions. Do you have any, examples of really good discovery questions to come in and make sure you address with the seller right away?
Yeah. So after I kind of understand the type of condition and the property it's in, I try to figure out all the good reasons why they wouldn't want to sell. I mean, Matt, you've owned this property for 15 years. You seem like you got a good tenant here that's paying solid rents. It's in good condition. I mean, why are you even thinking about selling this property? And maybe they give you a response like, well, you called me, make me an offer. See, that person's smart. He's staying on the surface level. He doesn't want to give up his cards, right? He doesn't want to show his cards. So you gotta see, okay, how many times a year are you making repairs to the property? 3, 4 times? Oh, wow. Are you making those repairs yourself or do you hire somebody for that? How much money do you think you're spending on that a year? Okay. Gotcha. And, I mean, say for example, he lives in the property. It's 2,000 square foot property. If you go on Zillow, you see that it's sold in 1998. You could say, wow, this is a pretty big property. It looks like you've owned it since 1998, Matt. I'm guessing that it's just you and your wife. Your kids moved out. Okay, now he's like, guessing maybe you want to move closer to family. I mean, maybe you don't need to deal with how big this house is. That's one example. Another problem is like maybe you see the tax and you look at how much they're paying in tax. I mean, wow, the taxes are $15,000 a year. My gosh, now I see why you want to move. So you kind of ask them questions like that to try to figure out what problems they're going through. But as you ask the right questions, you might start to uncover the real reasons and the real problems that they're going through. And then the next step is to figure out what that dream is. After they sell, what are they going to do with the money? You're going to buy a boat? You're going to move to North Carolina? You're going to get something smaller so you don't have to go up and down the stairs? You really just need to ask the right questions to try to put them through that sales process from where they are, where they want to be, and really present them a tailored offer that's going to solve their unique situation.
Love that, man. This is fantastic. Another great thing, in terms of coming in with that due diligence and knowing, like you said, the last time it was sold or what they're paying on taxes, things like that. A ton of that data. I mean, you have over 700 data points in DealMachine to be able to really dig in on that. So that's something we really try to teach people is, hey, you've got, an AI powered dialer in DealMachine to make the calls. You've got property data all around, like you said, when it was sold, the tax, what are you dealing with on taxes? What are you looking at in terms of, really any property characteristic, anything around the land, liens, all kinds of data to be able to look at and ask great questions, discovery questions like that. And then you also have demographic data. So you can see, things around like ownership and age and, things like, do they have a portfolio, really dig in about that individual so you can ask great questions and dig in on, like you said, what are they missing? Where's that pain, and what are they looking to achieve?
Right.
And really listen. Once you ask those questions. So,
Yeah, that's huge. That's also huge. If you see that there's an older
mhm.
gentleman, you might say something like, "How you've owned this property for 20 years? You sound like a spring chicken, man. How old are you?"
Love it.
And get a little laughter there. But
Yeah.
now you might see, oh, I'm guessing you're looking to maybe downsize, right? This looks like a 2 floor buy level. I get it. I get it.
Yep.
So
And
yeah,
all that data is in there. That's awesome, man. I,
yeah,
I love it. Uh, Really quick here too. I know we mentioned, or you talk about the direct to seller leads, right? Can you talk about a little bit more on how you guys are generating those, how you're thinking through that process? I'd love any advice for the audience there.
yeah. So I started off cold calling because I learned how to cold call myself. I was able to hire a cold call team in house. They're on my payroll in the Philippines. That's a great way to get started. I think the highest return on advertising spend, the biggest return you're going to get dollar to dollar is probably texting because it's cheap, and you're going to generate large volumes of leads. However, it requires a lot of work. Direct mail is phenomenal, except if you don't know how to convert a seller when you're on the phone with them, you're going to spend a lot of money to generate that call, but you're not going to be able to convert them. That's a major problem. That's why before you start spending a lot of money, you need to understand different exit strategies, right?
Mhm.
Is this a wholesale? Is this a buy and hold? Is this a fix and flip? Should I novate this? Should I just refer it out to a listing agent? How can I monetize this one lead in various different strategies so I'm not leaving money on the table? But I think direct mail, phenomenal. I do PPL, pay per lead providers. I have some joint ventures structured with some of the larger ones where I do splits with them. They send me leads, I close them, and we do splits. I do Facebook ads. I do SEO. I do a lot of different marketing I get a ton of deals through Instagram. People who don't know what to do after they get a deal, because they don't have the means to sell it or execute on the business plan. I kind of come in, I help them out. So that's pretty. I have various different marketing strategies, but I would
Mhm.
say for those getting started, texting is really good. I do have templates. I have sequences and cadences that I built out that I'm more than happy to share. So if you want to
Yeah.
hit me up afterwards, I'm more than happy to share what I have. I spent like years building them, but you're gonna have to modify them because you can't send the same thing. The softwares don't allow that. But more than
Mhm.
happy to kind of plug you guys in there.
Awesome, man. Really appreciate that. I mean, I know our customers, the most common things they're doing a combo of the cold calling, like you mentioned, you've got that right in DealMachine, the direct mail, and then a lot of, you can drive a list inside DealMachine as well. So we've got a lot of people who might door knock or leave door hangers or flyers on the door, things like that. So, um,
Yeah.
awesome, man. I don't want to run way too far over on you. So, one last question I did want to ask you about, and again, of course, this could be a deep dive breakdown that you might do in your course or your events and things like that already. But when it comes to deal analysis, do you have any advice there on how to break down that deal? Because I know you mentioned like, hey, if you have a great deal, you're going to find the funding. So like, can you kind of give at least a high level overview on what a great deal looks like, and that way we people could walk away with a couple nuggets there.
Yeah. So I'm I'm very analytical by nature. So I studied finance. I went into private equity. I was a financial analyst, right? So I'm gonna try to keep this as simple as possible. Um, Assuming that you're in a market where there is investors, where days on market is relatively low, and it's not like a buyer's market, right? It's pretty stable. People are interested in buying. People are interested in selling. Just a stable market. I don't know, but like if you're in an urban area, it's typically that case, right?
Mhm.
Um, I would say that investors are usually willing to pay 75 to 80 cents on the dollar. Okay. So that means if ARV is $1 million, and the renovation for this property is about 100, let's just say 100 grand, what you're gonna do is you're going to multiply the $1 million by 80%. That's 80 cents on the dollar. And you subtract it by 100 grand in renovation. So that means an investor is willing to pay 700 grand for this property. If you could really typically only get 80 cents on the dollar if you're really good at dispositions. If you have it dialed in, you have a good buyer's list. Um, honestly, I break this all down in the course, but I have no
Mhm.
problem doing it. It's just simple math. If it's 75 cents on, if you don't have a great one, you know you can sell it 75 cents on the dollar. So $1 million times 75% minus 100 grand. That means someone's willing to pay $650,000 for this property. So you want to bake in your fee there as a wholesaler. For me, if I'm buying and holding something, and it's got to make sense on the cash flow perspective. So this is a little deeper dive, but I like to buy it and I like to refinance it, take all my money off the table. Typically, when I do that, I need to at least buy it 65 to 70 cents on the dollar for me to buy it. For me to fix and flip it, I like to see that it's a light rehab. I'll buy it 75 cents on the dollar, in and out, right? I'll make double what I can, maybe wholesaling it. Novations, basically when you flip the property to a retail buyer, instead of wholesaling it to an investor at 80 cents, we figured out a way where you can novate it and sell the same deal to a retail buyer, FHA, conventional, people who are going to pay top dollar, and sell it 100 cents on the dollar, right? So we'll lock up a deal 80 cents on the dollar day one and be able to sell it to a retail buyer 100 cents on the dollar. And it's been a phenomenal way to make a ton of money for us in this market.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I don't know if that was too in depth, but
No.
basically, if you have different exit strategies available, there's different pricing that you need to adjust for. Bottom line is that when you're running comps, when you're running ARV, when you're running as is, you really need to kind of have not just look at like what other things are selling for, the legislation around the markets that you're in and the how difficult it is to execute that business plan. Say, for example, you have a squatter in there or you have tenants that are paying very low rents and you can't get them evicted. That's going to impact your ability to execute that 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 business plan, right? And so that will also impact value, right?
Mhm.
If it's a huge gut rehab and it takes a lot longer to execute that business plan than a just couple little cosmetic fixes, well, that's going to cost a lot more, right? So that's going to impact how much you could pay for the property. So there's just different variables. I have like on my course, I'm throwing out like 15 different case studies about these kind of variations and how to look at deals from my perspective. But yeah, that's pretty much it in a nutshell. I hope that's not
Yeah.
too confusing.
No, that's a great framework, man. I mean, again, I know that's a full deep dive in the course and could be a multi-hour masterclass just on that specific thing. But over 5 minutes, like that's a phenomenal summary right there. So,
Yeah.
yeah, man. I just want to say thank you so much for coming on. Like, always enjoy catching up with you. This has been fantastic. I got a ton out of it. I know our audience will too. One thing that I wanted to give you a shout out on too. I know you've got an event coming up here, at the end of September. Is it the 22nd, right? I
Yeah,
believe.
it's
No, it's a
on
Sunday.
September 20th to the 22nd. It's going to be a
There we go.
3 day like intensive boot camp,
Mhm.
9 to 7 a.m. where you're coming to the event. It's going to be limited to 25 people because I want to make sure to give every single person that comes like a ton of attention. Basically, I'm going to show you this entire sales process, my exact sales process. You're going to have the opportunity to role play with me, and then I'm spending tens of thousands of dollars to generate leads for you guys. So you're not cold calling, you're calling the same leads that I would call to get deals, right? So I'm generating those for you and then allowing you to call those leads to set up appointments for the next day, right? And then I'm going to underwrite every single appointment that's set. There's 25 people. There should be 25 appointments. So I'm going to underwrite 25 deals live on every single exit strategy, novation, fix and flip, hold, all of it, right? And then I'm actually getting on the phone with you on that day. I'm going to close the sellers for you. Me and my best closers, we're going to close it for you. And that's your deal, right? If it's good fix and flip, I'll put up all the money. If it's a good hotel, I'll put up all the money. If it's a good wholesale, I'm probably going to be able to sell it better than you. So I'll find a buyer. We could go 50-50, split that right down the middle. And so I'm hopeful that there's going to be a ton of people that walk out making way more money than the actual event cost. And then going into day 3, they're going to set up more appointments. And again, I'm going to show them how to actually close. I'm going to give them my exact closing process. And I'm going to be sitting right next to them, me and my guys, coaching them through the call on how to close. And if they need a little bit of saving, we're going to jump in and close the deals for them. And yeah, we're going to have an opportunity to really connect. We're going to have breakfast, lunch. We're going to have some parties. It's going to be a really good time. And like, I think, I don't know, man, I'm just jacked up because I know that this is going to add more value. I think personally for the people that attend, it's so limited, but for the people that attend, it's going to change lives because they're going to see, people are going to walk out with deals. And what's better than showing up to an event and leaving with some money? You know what I mean?
That's awesome, man. Yeah, I know we're so pumped about that too. I know we appreciate you getting us involved with the event as well. So we'll be, involved there too. And yeah, I wanted to make sure people knew about that. What's the best way for people to connect with you on that, and then in general get involved with you too?
Yeah, look from text templates, from if you want to know about the event, if you want to just connect on a deal in New Jersey, you want to know more about the course, just shoot me a text message. 201-973-7029. That's my personal cell phone. Leave me alone on Sundays. Just kidding. Yeah, but seriously. Yeah, but you guys could just shoot me a quick text. I'd love to connect. And yeah, man, I appreciate the time that we had together, Matt. It's always a pleasure, my friend.
Yeah, David, you're the man. Appreciate you coming on, dude. So again, really appreciate the time. Enjoyed the conversation. To everyone watching, again, this is Matt Camp with DealMachine, and happy deal finding.